Hello and thanks for joining me in this video, removing stubborn bolts or nuts. I'm going to show you 10 different ways that will help you loosen up those bolts. I had a really bad problem with this bolt and I actually tried a number of different techniques. You can see an example of what I did. I used everything that I had in my power and I also bought some extra things to help me get it sorted. Let's have a look. Number one, make sure you have the right socket set. There's 6-sided nuts and there's 8-sided nuts and there's all sorts of nuts, so make sure you got the right one. Use a bar. You want to get a bar to give you extra leverage. You'll see my nut was so stuck that the bar actually bent. You can also get an impact driver. So that's number 3. Get yourself an impact driver and see if that helps you get the nut loosened, because that works in a way where it's actually putting force on the nut, like a bit of a hammer drill action. So it actually doesn't spin continuously. It gives it jolts of spins. So you'll see with this nut, I tried a number of things. I think overall I spent like 3 days obviously taking breaks to get refreshed because this was taking quite a long time. So the nut here in question is holding the main engine into the motorcycle frame, and the case is aluminum, the nut is hardened steel. So some type of chemical reaction must have taken place where it's rusted and just worked its way into the frame. Number 4 is a hammer. With this you want to be careful, don't use too much pressure that you end up damaging either the engine case or the actual surrounding environment. Number 5, nut removers. So these are rocket socket. So considering what I've been using so far, the nut got chewed up after a while and it wasn't actually letting me fit a socket on there. So what I did is I brought this special nut removers, and you basically hammer them on. It's like a flower shape in the actual nut as opposed to 6-sided. You hammer it on so it actually gets very good grip, and I was pleased that it did get the grip. However, even using a pry bar and using this rocket socket set, it still did not spin. So with how far I've got now, I was able to take one of the nuts off one side, but the bolt itself was not coming out. So I'm using a number of techniques here to try and work it out. I used a longer pry bar. We used the same technique, slowly moving forward and back, as in clockwise, anti-clockwise, to get it out, but it was not working for me. So in the end, the rocket socket did hold. I was quite pleased that it didn't slip off like the nut was slipping off, because we kind of tried to make new threads on the bolt as it were with this. But you'll see I bent my second metal bar there, so it was being very stubborn. You will have these types of nuts that will just need heat. So number 6 is adding some heat. Every forum that I spoke on, people are saying just heat it till it's red hot. You want to be careful with this, because remember, hardened steel or iron melts, but aluminium melts quicker, so you don't end up damaging your case. Number 7 is ice. I'm using ice and heat in conjunction with each other. So you're heating the bolt and then you're using ice to cool it down instantly, and then heating and going through that cycle to kind of make it contract and use that. Number 8 is a multi-tool. So this is like, I wasn't sure. I thought, shall I get a grinder or shall I get a multi-tool? And in the end, a grinder was better than the multi-tool, because the multi-tool was a little bit useless. You need a carbide blade, otherwise it just won't cut through the metal. And that didn't work at all. It didn't do anything really. So I got rid of the multi-tool. This is like the flat ones that you can use in sanding and stuff. Number 9 is the best decision I made in my entire life. Angle grinder. You want to grind that bad boy right down, but obviously you have to follow this up with something, because as you grind it down, your nut will not come out. So you need to look at additional things. I got a cutting disc and I cut the head off the nut that was still coming through the frame, because we know now at this point that everything we've tried has not loosened up this nut. Will I get this nut out? Well, stay tuned, because you will see what happened and how this worked out for me. And this 3-day ordeal was just traumatic. So you can see the angle grinder slowly working it and making sure that it's not getting too hot, that it creates pressure on the aluminum case, because the motorcycle case here is aluminium, a very soft metal compared to the nut itself. But we cut the nut off, which kind of gave us a flat area to work with, and that brings us on to the next situation. What is that? Well, number 10, drill it. So get yourself some Metal RSS hardened steel drill bits, get a hammer, a punch, and punch a hole in the top, and that gives your drill something to work off. So as you're doing this, you will notice that you want to be able to have a point that's right in the middle, because remember, if you're drilling it out, we want to get a nice circular hole all the way through the bolt as far as it can, because I think it's at a certain point that it's rusted and fused with the case. So you can see here I've got a number of techniques. I'm using some drilling oil to keep it cool so my blade bit doesn't like stop cutting. Basically, it still stays sharp. So slowly I went up from 0.5 millimeter all the way up to like something like 3 mil, 4 mil, I think it ended up at, and I got a nice hole in there, which meant that we were at a better point. Less of the metal was contacting the case, the outer case. So this was the solution in the end. Keep drilling until you get to a point there's no bolt left, because you drilled the whole thing out from either side. So this is from both sides that I did this, but this was the most sensible solution, and I think I should have stuck with this at the starting, because the other 10 things I tried, if you have a less stubborn bolt, you would probably succeed by this time. But I had to go full on and drill the whole thing out. You can see here it drilled out, left a tiny slight casing around it, but the bolt was still fused to the case. So in the end, I had to go back to the angle grinder and grind out a nice slot and take the whole bolt out. You'll see on the top is what the bolt should have been like, and the bottom is what I've got left after all that grinding. Best of luck if you're in this situation, and you'll see I ended up using this to get it out. It was fully fused, and this is going to help you. 10 tips to get it all loose and get that bolt out of that frame. If you're enjoying this series, make sure to subscribe so you actually get notifications directly to your phone each time I load a new episode. I've got loads of videos planned for this bike when we get it back on the road, so it'd be good to have you along on the journey with me. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video right here.